Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show. Night Dreams Talk Radio Network brings you the World Paranormal News with James Creechbaum. Now, the latest news.
I'm James Creechbaum with the Paranormal and World Changes News. An asteroid as big as an Egyptian pyramid is zooming towards Earth and will squeeze past us on Friday. That's tomorrow. If it doesn't smash onto our home planet's surface. Named 2019 WR3, NASA expects the space rock to make a close approach to Earth tomorrow. The space agency has classified the asteroid as a near-Earth object, which means its orbit brings it very close in cosmic terms to Earth. The asteroid was first spotted late last week. NASA has now observed the asteroid some 74 times to better get a sense of its size and trajectory. WR3 is believed to have a diameter of between 76 meters to 170 meters. It is expected that on December 6th, the asteroid will pass within 5.4 million kilometers of Earth at speeds of 27,000 kilometers per hour. The warning comes as the European Space Agency approves $470 million mission called Hera to examine whether the rogue asteroid on its way to Earth could be deflected out of the way. Working with NASA is the ESA will send a pair of spacecraft to double asteroid system called Didymos to examine the asteroids and send valuable data back home. The larger asteroid Didymos is about 800 meters across, orbited by a moon about 160 meters wide. Well, hopefully this doesn't crash into us or cause any serious damage. I mean, that is a last-minute thing to pop up on somebody, to say the least. Also in the news, Druins, Stonehenge trespass appeal thrown out by judge. An appeal by Druins against a Stonehenge trespass conviction was thrown out by judges after one of the women admitted she could charge her crystals at Avebury. Judge Peter Crabtree delivered a crushing verdict as Swindon Crown Court on Friday, more than a year after the three pagans were convicted by magistrates of breaching heritage laws and Stonehenge regulations. Also in the news, sickness like mad cow disease is spreading in U.S. deer and could infect humans. A deadly infection similar to mad cow disease is spreading in deer and it could affect humans, experts have warned. Officials are now monitoring cases of chronic wasting disease, which attacks the brain, spinal cord, and other tissue in North America. The CDC warns that to avoid these diseases or chances of getting them, stay away from eating venison. Also, former CIA agent, he claims that about 1 million people have been abducted. Now, this former CIA employee is not just a ufologist, but a person who is investigating alien abductions. And he has warned this has been going on for quite some time. Also, he warns that there's a total there are about 7 types of aliens. Now, the agent personally dealt with greys, reptiles, which are very similar to people. Some species were created on Earth based on human DNA, he says. And he also says that it's an ongoing problem. Also, there's an update on there's a strange mystery of the Eltinan antenna. Now, this is a very weird anomaly, and it's in the Antarctic Ocean, and it's about 2,000-3,000 feet down, and it looks like a big antenna sticking out of the ocean floor. It looks man-made. And the question is, how did it get there, and why is it there? And it's still ongoing. They're still trying to figure out what it is and how it got there. Now, it was discovered in 1960, but it's so deep nobody can really get down to it. And the ocean that it is in it's rough seas. So hopefully we get some further updates on that. Next news break, top of the hour.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show.
And we are back from break. I'll tell you the news. Hey, it's better than listening to, well, other types of news because you know what? It's the paranormal news and earth changes news. Anyway, we got Dave Oman on, I hope, right now. Hey, Dave, how you doing? Or David, I should say.
I'm very good. How are you both doing? I can hear the two of you there.
Oh, yeah, we are here, and you're over there. You live right next door to where Sharon Tate was murdered?
I live about 3 houses from where Sharon Tate was murdered. There were 2 houses here originally on the private drive on that infamous night, and up until about 25 years ago, those were the only 2 houses next to Sharon's, and then about 50 feet away from that house, there was a second house, and somebody built a house in between those 2 houses about 25 years, maybe 30 years ago, and then I came along and 20 years ago built this house that I live in down the street from her place.
Okay, well, why don't we tell you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to go into, what's it like to live, where all these murders took place?
Absolutely. Be my pleasure to do so. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I actually have a crazy kind of an interesting connection to the Sharon Tate murders in the fact that when I was a kid, my mom used to drive hitchhikers, give them rides because we lived up in the hills similar to where I live now. And it was a pain in the ass for kids to walk up these steep hills, and it was also dangerous because there was literally no sidewalk, and I speak from my personal experiences of having to walk up those hills to get home when I couldn't get a ride from friends and stuff, and it was a schlep. And it was in 1969 that, in 68, that we were living up in the hills of Bel Air, down the street from a guy named Jan Berry of Jan and Dean. And my mom used to pick these hitchhikers up, and they were usually always girls, and usually a group of them, at least 2 to 3 of them. And they'd be thumbing, and my mom says, "Okay, where are you going?" "We're going up to the Berry house." And Jan Berry of Jan and Dean was the preeminent beach music of Southern California, preceding the Beach Boys.
Uh-huh.
And the Beach Boys and Dennis Wilson and Brian Wilson all knew Jan and Dean. Well, these girls would get in the back of my mom's 1968 Eldorado and get in there, and I'd be in the front seat, and I'd turn around and look at them, and they'd be all very nice and chatty and hippie-esque, but always really nice. But I remember as a kid looking in their eyes and going, there's just something just a little bit off-kilter with them. And I don't know, I was sensitive, but I certainly felt that vibe that there was something not quite, let us say, right, that didn't feel okay. Well, after the murders took place, of course, nobody knew about who had done them, so my mom stopped giving hitchhikers rides. And about 3 months after the murders took place on the news, it was breaking story that they had found who the murderers were. And it turns out that those girls were some of the girls that were protesting in front of the L.A. Superior Courts, and the girls that were incarcerated were, in fact, some of the girls that my mom had actually been giving rides to.
Scary. Now, David, they were what,
Wow.
cult members with
They were
Manson?
Members of the family, yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, I got to ask you some questions here.
Yeah.
Now, also, Jan and Dean, didn't one of them get in a car wreck or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's who was. Jan Berry was the one who, in 1966, had a horrific accident on Sunset Boulevard on the area called Dead Man's Curve. And he was laid up in bed, and he was in this house, and the house was really like I want to say like a country farm, because even though we were up in the hills of Bel Air, right, this house had horses, I know they had chickens, I don't think they had ducks, but they had live animals there that were barnyard animals, and I was like, this was great because I used to go up there in the 70s when I was a kid because we all used to hang out there because one of our neighbors had horses that you could go up and hang out with. No. You're talking not possible, but it was, and that was part of Jan's estate up there. And it was kind of like they were going up there to hang out with him to basically ease his pain and type of stuff. And because of the connection back to the Beach Boys, it made sense.
Interesting. Now,
and the fact that the girls had, let's just say, had basically gone through and matriculated through the Hollywood scene to a lot of different celebrities' homes.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like Charles Manson. The misnomer is that Manson was an absconded, nobody and that nobody knew him in Hollywood. Quite to the contrary. Before the proverbial shit hit the fan with the murders, Charles Manson, and up to about 7 months earlier, until such time as I think it was January or December of 68 or January of 69, that things fell apart between Brian Wilson and Charles Manson.
Now, Charles Manson, though, wasn't he in a band or a singer or something, if I remember right?
He was he wanted to be a musician and a singer and a songwriter, and he was a lyricist. And what it was he had come across, I forgot, one of the girls had met up with Brian Wilson and started hanging out there at the house. And what happened was that he met Manson, and Manson turned him on to some of his lyrics that he had written down. And what really was the hook was that Manson got hooked on a dream, on a shooting star, and that was the fact that he thought that Brian Wilson was going to do, and Brian also led him to believe that he was going to make a record with some of Manson's music. And it really fueled the fire to Manson to believe that he was going to get his dream come true. And what happened is that Brian was working on the album Pet Sounds.
Oh, yeah.
And Pet Sounds went ballistic. Everybody in Hollywood, in the music industry, turned to Brian Wilson as the boy of the hour because of his brilliant compositions and arrangements and the sound that he created in the Beach Boys album Pet Sounds. It threw him to the top of the heap where everybody wanted him to produce their albums. As a result, instead of being able to fulfill Manson's dream and make his the songs a reality, he had to basically, as he said, I have to pay the bills. I have all these people. I'm in hot demand. They all want me to do their albums. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm going to have to say I can't do it. So basically, that's what happened. So in February of '69. Charles Manson was friends with Terry Melcher, the manager of the Beach Boys, and he goes up to Sharon Tate's house. Well, he goes up to Terry Melcher's house in March of '69 looking for Terry. And Terry's moved out in February because he and Candice Bergen have broken up, and they no